Hello everybody, what's going on? We're back for another video, and in this video I wanted to touch on these two topics that have been kind of repetitively kind of been manifesting themselves in what I have been like looking at and studying and reading and listening to, and it's pain and pleasure. So basically they say that, or there's this idea going around that everything in human society boils down to these two factors: money, wars, conflict. Basically, all of the world problems can be summed up in this like type of, which one do you want? Do you want pain or do you want pleasure? And I mean, if you enter like the ethical terrain, right, where you analyze ethics and moral, there's an attempt to try to justify everything in these two types of categories, right? Like, but you enter a problem, obviously a moral problem, when you have to consider like the long term or the short term of things, right? Like what's pleasurable in the short term is maybe harmful in the long term, right? Like drinking or smoking, and what's painful in the short term, could be potentially pleasurable in the long term, right? Such as like working hard or just working in general. Working is painful while you're doing it, but then you get money, so you're able to pay your bills, and that's pleasurable. So okay, there's basically this idea going around, like I mentioned, and I wrote down a couple things. Well, basically, there's another idea, right, which is kind of like the yin and yang, right? And I don't know if you have seen the yin and yang, the yin and yang symbol. I'm gonna put it like up here, but the yin and yang symbol is the good and the bad, right? The black and the white. But if you notice, there's a little circle in the black, which is white, and there's a little circle in the white, which is black. That means that in good there's a potential for bad all of the time, and in bad there's the potential for good, right, all of the time as well. And there are people, and this is kind of where I'm not sure if I agree or not. Well, I was thinking about this, that they basically say it can't all be pleasure. If it were all pleasure, like let's say it's a utopian society, right, where everything is wonderful. And that's actually what like people like Jordan Peterson say, that progressive people, or people that are like on the left, they're trying to get to a utopia, where basically they don't pollute the environment, they save the earth, everybody's equal, there's no racial discrimination, there's no financial or economic discrimination, everybody's well off. In this type of utopian society where only pleasure reigns would be bad, right? There's the argument made that would be a bad way to live, right? Even though you could say, well, it's a pleasure all the time, how could that be bad? Well, there's another idea, like I was mentioning, that they say you have to basically suffer in order for there to be pleasure, right? And you're gonna kind of say like, what? And I'll go back to that yin and yang symbolism, where they say that what you basically, if you suffer to get something, that makes it better, right? So for example, in seduction, there's an idea put out there by Robert Greene which says mix pain and pleasure. So that means, and I would say you can apply that in general to any type of social interaction where you want to get people to like you. You can't be all pleasure. That means that you can't basically be the nice guy all the time, right? And that goes hand in hand with the shadow work and everything, right? But since we're focusing on pain and pleasure, it basically means like ignoring the person or inflicting certain amount of pain, but then retracting. And when you retract, that heightens the next time you come around, and you come back like as a nice guy, right? So it's like be nice, then be bad, and then be nice again, right? Good, bad. And the idea, and this is where I say that I'm not really sure if I agree with it, because it's basically telling you to inflict pain. And we have to take into account, which I'm going to make a video further on, about resentment, justice, unfairness, revenge, playing out revenge, where you actually, if someone treats you like that, you may not like it, but other than that, I mean, if they come around and then they treat you well, you may do that like I kind of look at it like a check mark, where you're somewhere, and then you go down, you're bad, right? But then when you're good, it like heightens it up. So this is kind of like the seduction notion. Even if you do that long term, I think people are gonna resent you. They're gonna hate you, right? Because you're treating them bad. So that's where I kind of don't know if that's such a good idea, because it's this idea of, even if you're bad, being bad and then at times being good, or being good and then at times being bad, right? Which it's like shaking things up, right? People would say, oh, that's just like shaking things up, and we'll go back to the idea of Tony Robbins, where he says people need certainty first, but then second, they need variety, they need uncertainty, and my problem with that is like, why do humans need that, right? Because for example, there's the idea also of growing up before technology, right? And when we grew up without technology, we didn't have this like notion of so they talk about social media, and social media is both good and bad, right? Because sometimes they say, well, it's making us grow farther apart from each other, right? Like they do a study with kids, and I think it really doesn't. I think it doesn't really distance us as much as we think it does. Okay, so I was talking a couple videos back about this book I'm reading, Damien by Herman Hesse, and in it he describes how you're faced with the bad in society, and the bad in society, I guess, well, he doesn't say it in the book, but I would say it's part of what you have to go through in order to grow up, right? And we can kind of see this reflected with technology, where they were asking like a bunch of kids and a bunch of parents in this video that I was watching if they think that that life is more dangerous on social media, or if it is more dangerous in the real world. And people were saying that it's more dangerous in the real world because you're exposed to physical harm, but it's also dangerous online because you don't know who you're talking to, right? And because of this idea that like the outside world, now people are afraid to walk out of their houses, right? Because like they were saying in this video, they think that they can get like kidnapped or raped or something like that. There's an immersion in the digital world where it's now like everything online, technology reigns, right? And then people think that that it's technology's fault, when in reality it's the way people are, right? I believe the problem with technology and social media is not technology per se or social media apps. It's more of people, right? Like teenagers and kids have always had problems, and they'll continue to have problems because they're teenagers and they're kids. So the social media factor or the technology factor isn't really one to be considered when these type of problems are presented. Regardless of social media and technology, people are going to have these problems, right? Because that's just how society and how people are. So what is my take on this? My take on this, and I think this has kind of been like a repetitive topic. I don't know why I made a video on it. I'm kind of struggling with the ideas right now. But I think the bottom line is that you may need some of the bad in low quantities. I don't think you should push people too far, but you should spice up your life with some type of negativity once in a while, right? Because that does kind of shake things up. Like right now I was just reading Damien, and he said something about Christmas and New Year's that I hadn't thought about before, like the Christmas season. And he said that it was a time to refresh or basically to like like basically to refresh their vows, their love, their commitment to their family. And I thought that was pretty interesting because I think throughout the year you can forget about those things. So then the holiday season will get us back on track, and I think that is true. So that's all I got for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.